All right. Welcome to episode 4 of the Never Better Pod.
Can't believe we've done 4 of these already.
I know, dude. That actually has gone by pretty fast.
You're Devlin?
I'm Develyn.
I'm Ed.
A big tone. Is that what it was? Big tone?
Oh my God, big tone. Speaking of that, got in another real rough game this weekend. The coach of the other team instigated the fight. He pushes one of my players, and then of course, like our bench clears were in a stalemate. And oh my God, the icing on the cake. A mom comes on the field and starts threatening to get into it. So
Dude,
insane.
what is it with VI soccer? It's like violent.
Big Tone had to keep it composed. What do you got for us this week, my friend? I'm excited to hear your topic.
Yeah, I mean, so our last 2 episodes have been a little bit heavier in nature, I guess, like really trying to get at some big topics, which if we want to talk about mental health, we kind of have to. Obviously, we talked about toxic masculinity in my last episode, and then you discussed alcohol last week, which I think we discussed we'll probably come back to at some point in time because it's such like a vast topic. And even since recording that podcast, I've been thinking about it so much and having some more conversations this week, like with Sarah and stuff. And so anyway, I just wanted to keep things a little bit more fun and light, but also in some ways, it's something that's kind of been on my mind that I've noticed through my mental health journey this last year. And that fun thing is music. We all love music, so I wanted to talk about it today.
That's amazing. And yeah, I'm glad you brought up the fact that Ode to Alcohol will be an episodic series. Way too much to cover in one succinct hour.
Oh, there's Alba.
Here's Alba. Music. Start us off.
Yeah, so my desire to talk about it this week, kind of as I iterated, is that it has had an impact on my mental health. It's just one of the things that I noticed that in general, I found when I was taking time for music or just listening to music more regularly were kind of those points where like I felt a little bit happier, felt a little bit better. I was managing my mood a little bit better. My anxiety maybe didn't feel as bad. So basically I was like, I want to understand what's going on here. I mean, I think we all understand some basics about music. It is kind of one of those like things that is apparent everywhere in the world. So yeah, I did a little bit of research, been reading some stuff and wanted to have a bit of a chat about that today.
I knew that this was upcoming, so I just listened to music all week and was a little more reflective about the impact that it was having on me.
Yeah.
So I'm excited.
This is kind of cool.
So,
I messaged you like an hour ago and I was like, man, I don't know if I can do this today. Like I was just like feeling kind of shitty. I had a headache. Was feeling like low energy, wasn't feeling like the wheels were totally spinning well. And I was just finishing off some of my research to the pod. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to like put this into practice. And I put on some music that I used to listen to back when I was like in my university days. And it actually ended up just being this thing where I would always listen to this one band before I had like a big exam or something. You know, I'd be driving to the university or taking the bus or whatever. And I would always listen to Rat-a-tat, which I don't know if are you familiar with them?
Absolutely. The Notorious B.I.G. Party and Bullshit remix?
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally. So it's like very much like electric guitar, lots of like looping, but there's something about it that I find just ignites my brain and like really gets me going. So I put on some Rat-a-tat, which I've been doing a decent amount this week, and it just totally flipped my energy levels around. I don't know, just felt like the cogs were spinning a little bit more lubricated. So yeah, that's the kind of thing I wanted to chat about.
Well, this is a testament to our friendship because when you texted me with some cold beat for today's episodes, I was like, you know what? This is the perfect out. I'm not really feeling it either. If it wasn't for the fact that I have such a jam-packed day tomorrow driving up to Courtney and then soccer practice at night, I would have taken your out. But I literally put on music and ate some food and drank some please to get into the mood. And here we are. We're smiling, chatting with my best bud.
Amazing. That's cool. That like leads very well into the first thing that I kind of discovered, even just mentioned there, like listening to music, eating some food. What those two things have in common is the like dopamine release in our brains. So I wanted to understand like kind of like biologically what's happening when we're listening to music. So there was a study done where basically they would do like PET scans and like MRIs of your brain while listening to music and trying to understand like what's happening. And one of those things is like a big release of dopamine, which is pretty cool. It's the same thing that happens when we eat food or do drugs or that sort of thing. But it's very important, obviously, for our health. Dopamine is essential. It improves our mood, our motivation, and enhances our cognitive performance, which, I mean, exactly what we just did. Very cool.
Exactly. Yeah. You've seen the movie Awakenings, like early 90s with Robin Williams?
I don't think I have, actually.
I hadn't seen it, and it was on leaving Netflix soon, and I just chucked it on because it has like an IMDb of 8, and it's Robin Williams. And he is this psychologist who basically uses this experimental Parkinson's drug called L-Dopa, which floods the body with dopamine, and it wakes up these people that have been in like a statute state for 30 years. Their brain's been active the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally spoiled the movie for you. It doesn't work in the long term, but pretty crazy.
Yeah, I think I
Dopamine.
remember something about that now. I probably saw it a long time ago or something. The other cool thing was it actually has an impact on your heart rate and your breathing rate and your blood pressure and stuff. So, I mean, we all kind of know you listen to more like upbeat, energetic music that gets your heart rate going, gets your energy levels going. Very much the same thing for listening to like slower tempo, like more relaxing music. That's going to slow your heart rate down and calm you down. So that's all just in this study verified. I mean, as this thing, it's all things we've experienced, right? But it's cool to have that, like people out there doing that research to figure out like why and what's going on.
It really is. And I wonder if that's why I've always gravitated towards calmer music, because my resting state is like a hummingbird. It's going
Dude, I had this thought when I was doing this because I'm the opposite. I feel like my natural state is more low energy, very like chill. And typically I listen to more upbeat, like positive, higher energy music because it's like an upper for me, like it gets me going. And I did
Yeah.
have that thought that I think you are the opposite. You typically listen to more, slower female singer songwriter kind of stuff. That's, yeah, just like a little bit more calming, I think.
In juxtaposition to what's going on in here, for sure.
Totally. The other thing that's kind of cool is there was another study that they looked into also the serotonin effects. So there's definitely some significant influence to our serotonin levels as well, which help to stabilize our moods and reduce anxiety and that kind of thing. So there's a whole whack of stuff going on in our brains when we listen to music, which is pretty cool.
Super cool. Have you found that there are these facts in your life that you've learned, and maybe you've learned it at like the right time or from the right person, and it's become like a cornerstone? I remember, honestly, grade 2, I learned my first fact about serotonin. Didn't know what it was, didn't know anything. It's told to me from this teacher's assistant or something. Serotonin's a chemical in your brain, and if you're going into a test and you say, hey, I've got this, I know all this material, I'm going to breeze through this test, your body produces serotonin and you recall the information faster. I put that into practice from grade 2 to now, and yeah, it works.
So why aren't you running the world?
Sure. Yeah, there's a whole lot of other problems I got to tackle still. We got a lot of episodes to go, you guys.
Totally. Yeah. It kind of goes back to what I said about kind of listening to Rat-a-tat to awake my brain a little bit before going into a test. There was very much, I settled into a bit of a routine in terms of what I would eat and like drinking water and whatever. I almost treated it like, and you would know this too, right? Before a big soccer game or you're getting pumped up for the weekend tournament or something like that. So you go into that routine of, okay, I'm going to eat this meal and drink water at this time and I'm going to put my kid on at this time and like then listen to this pump up music. I got this playlist ready to go. For me, the interesting thing was I treated like university in the same way, that cognitive exertion, which it's music's pretty cool.
Do you think that it's music directly affecting things, or is it music then affecting your like inner voice or your inner resting state that's then affecting things like cognition?
I mean, I think it's probably multifaceted, like I said, right? It's affecting like our dopamine or serotonin. Like there's also activating lots of different parts of the brain. So I think that's why it can have lots of these other knock-on effects. Like the next thing that I was kind of reading about was basically how music can then be linked to your memories. So there's this term, it's called music evoked autobiographical memory. And it's basically like how music can latch onto these significant moments of your life, or even sometimes fairly insignificant, but it gets so closely linked to your memories. And that helps you to then recall those memories and the emotions and everything that was going on. So like one of the songs that I was thinking about when doing this research is that song Walking on the Sun by Smash Mouth. You know, that would,
Yeah.
it's like, but I like vividly remember, and like I did the math on it. This was 27 years ago, but I remember being with my dad in the car driving down Bernard in Kelowna, like behind the Apple Bowl and where Dr. Knox Middle School used to be. And we used to have like a little Honda Del Sol where like the roof popped off, and we had the roof off. I think it was like maybe early summer, because I remember the sun being out and weather being kind of warm, but sort of earlier on where it was still a novelty. You're like, oh yeah, we got the top off, music going, whatever. And I remember that song and that moment so vividly. And that's a nothing moment, right? It's not like it was some big life altering event, but I have so many emotions and memories connected to that tiny little moment because of that song. Now, every time I hear it, I'm just transported back there. It's crazy.
Yeah, dude, that just made me think of so many things right there. First of all, it went to like the olfactory memory connections, like a smell that will take you back to a moment.
Yeah.
So this is the oral version. And honestly, I have memories in my dad's truck listening to songs at specific moments, but they have like more negative connotations. I'm like, fuck that. I yelled, we're going to Home Depot again on a Saturday. Come on. Like, I just want to play in the backyard. And it's one song that does it for me in the Home Depot parking lot of Langford. 1998 is Cake,
Yeah.
like Candlestickle Flame.
Yeah. My weird memory related to music and your dad's truck is when we took it to Galliano. And for me, it's the Tragically Hip, because I think there was a cassette, like Tragically Hip cassette in there that we listened to that weekend.
Well, that's amazing. And that's like a link to a positive memory.
Yeah.
Like going back to hunter gatherers, we remember dangerous things and awful things way worse than we remember positive things, because it's more important that you avoid those poisonous berries than you know where the healthy ones are, right? So, yeah.
Maybe that's my privilege. I got to check there. The fact that mine's all happy memories. I'm trying to think of things that are music that invokes a sad memory. Maybe some of those things I remember being like around similar, no, maybe a little bit older, like grade 6, grade 7 on like family road trips. And, you know, I'm at that age where I'm like first kind of like pining over a girl, and you got, you know, your head resting on the window and the raindrops rolling down the window, and you're listening to like, I don't know what that part is, probably like Linkin Park or something. But
Do you remember an artist named JoJo who had like a single called Leave, Get Out?
yes, that is one of the best breakup
Yeah.
songs ever.
Dude, that's like my sexual awakening moment. I swear to God, watching. Yeah. I'm a little bit younger than you, but also bloomed a little earlier. So maybe we were right on track. I don't know.
No, I don't know if I can divulge mine. It's too embarrassing. Next topic. So the next thing, which we all know, is that like it can like amplify our current moods as well. So obviously, like you're in a good mood, it can like push that good mood further. Think about, you know, on our days of pre-drinking with the boys and Dylan being on the tunes and like just getting the party going. Like that's when I think about that, like bringing things up with music. And then the same thing can be said for that, like dampening, you know, you're sad, listening to sad music can help you kind of entrench yourself in that sadness and find some solace, I think, which is kind of cool.
Closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
So good. I love that song. We got to add that to
Yeah.
our playlist.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And then the next thing is like that kind of, which I think you were getting at, and I think maybe ties into also another aspect of your love of more sad, calm songs, is those can also offer like a catharsis or emotional release as well. It can be a really effective tool for that, even if, I mean, sometimes I think of songs like you mentioned it a couple podcasts ago, but you got the title wrong. Bittersweet Symphony. I think you called it Supersonic Symphony or something like that. But that song for me that's like a catharsis sort of song. There's something about like that melancholy and those lyrics that really get you going, you know?
And the musical sequence to open it, the symphony, it's like the first note song plays and you know what's coming.
Totally. There was one that I think for me, this is being a millennial, born in 88, that whether it's music and I think movies as well or TV shows, I think that's why it can be so drawn to stuff from the 90s, is because it it takes you back to those emotional memories and those connections, that familiarity that kind of puts you into a more calm, safe space. Like the one song that I played on repeat a few times, it's called Inner Smile, and it's from the movie Bend It Like Beckham. But it's just it's such like a happy song. Like it's pretty simple, basic song, but there's, I don't know if it's a connection to that movie or that time period in my life, but to me, that's just back to the 90s. I'm just a kid again. Don't worry about the world's problems. Like everything's good.
Do you think media had so much more value when it was scarce? Like,
Yes.
you might have to wait around for that show to come on to hear this song or whatever, or this movie, you'd have to go rent it at Blockbuster. Now, the availability has made it almost less special. And just the fact that we're inundated with it everywhere, always.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think the one thing where it has an impact is those things that then you repeat it again and again and again and again. Like you'd watch that same movie 100 times because you rented it, you had to take it back, or the song that you had on CD, so you listened to it 1,000 times because you only had 4 CDs because you were 12, like those sort of things had such a big impact where, the songs especially are just so ingrained in your mind, every little lyric, but you heard them on the radio again and again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tuning a Much Music Countdown, listening to 40 songs you don't like just to hear the 2 that you do.
Totally. The next cool thing that I kind of discovered doing this research is there's actually therapeutic things out there to do with music. So there are practicing therapists that use music in part of their treatment, which is kind of cool. I mean, things like, obviously you can do that a bit at home. That very soothing music can help to calm anxiety. The other cool thing, a part of like the therapeutic things, is actually like making music can really help, especially with survivors of like trauma and with like PTSD and stuff. I mean, the one kind of typical thing they go to is like drum circles or whatever. And I actually think that's related to a thing I want to discuss as another topic in a future episode, but that's like EMDR. Do you know what EMDR is?
Only through you.
Yeah. So it's like another therapy thing that's really interesting that uses basically a beat, I guess you could call it. And it's basically a way it ignites your frontal cortex. And then you do this kind of therapy work or whatever. But it basically helps you rewire neural pathways to things that were once traumatic to find a positive outcome, essentially. So I think, and this is just me thinking, but that like drum circle thing, like, yes, I think there's probably, as you say, hunter-gatherer, like back to our roots sort of thing of like drumming away in the beat. But I think maybe there's something else going on there about that beat and how it interacts with our brain to allow us to like process emotion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it could also be to help people remember important things. So like story in these communities, drum circle, the song would be a story about something important to pass down. So maybe the fact incorporating music is going to lock it in there a little bit better based on those memory things that you were telling us about.
Lock it in and like access it too, right? I think that's a big thing.
Yeah.
People with PTSD and trauma is you kind of lock that stuff away and then don't deal with it. And this ties into what I'll discuss with EMDR, but basically what it does is it accesses the root of that trauma and brings that to the front. So it's weird if you're like me and suffer with anxiety and stuff, it can bring those feelings forward, but then you kind of change the rhythm and then you can reframe, and then you take that thought back to its origin and then kind of work through a kind of, whether it's acceptance or something, to kind of come to terms with it and then realize a positive or replace it with something positive. It worked absolute wonders for me. It's so cool. I would highly suggest anybody out there that's working with a therapist to, if there's something that they're really, really stuck on that they're struggling with, and that can be a really amazing way to unlock it and resolve it. You can literally walk out of there feeling like it's just resolved. It's really cool.
Without a high dose psychedelic trip?
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's another way to do it too. But I think that's another thing that comes down to that like dopamine release in your brain and stuff, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. Music while on psychedelics too, whole nother thing.
Dude.
I just had a like related but unrelated to what you were just talking about. As a percentage, how often would you say there's music playing when you're being intimate with your partner?
As a percentage, I don't know, but sometimes we like actively make that decision, like make a playlist or something.
Yeah. It's always nicer. when
Totally.
you
Yeah,
take
yeah,
the set the stage like that,
well, I think
especially so you don't have like the news on in the background or
yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. I think that sometimes, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people struggle with this. I know it's common, but that kind of like if you have any insecurities or you can get kind of like stuck in your head in those moments of intimacy too, I think that can help you kind of break out of that, not get so stuck in your mind and just be in the moment. Just cool.
Yeah, absolutely. That's gotta be what it is.
Yeah, which is cool. So actually, since we had our last recording of our last episode, I had my first like therapy session since releasing the pod, and my therapist listens, which is cool. Shout out. That's like so sick. But it was cool. We had some fun discussions about the podcast and like things I wanted to talk about. And the thing that got brought up with this topic in music is another one of the things that I have worked a lot on since going to therapy is this like trying to be in the moment or in the present. And that's one thing that music can really help for. My therapist described it similar as like why everybody likes watching the sunset is because it forces you into that moment. Like you're there watching the sunset. You're not worrying about what's happening in the future. You're not thinking about what happened before. You're very, very present in that moment. And music can fulfill a similar thing. I mean, kind of like you brought at the beginning, one of the sort of anecdotal things that I always remember when I think about mental health is somebody told me once that depression is kind of ruminating or stressing about things that happened in the past, and anxiety is worrying about the future. And so that key to being emotionally stable and not depressed or anxious is trying to stay in the present moment. So that's something that I've been actively working on. And I think music helps do that too, right? Like you put on a good song and you're singing along to the lyrics, like boom, you're in the moment. You're not thinking about anything else.
Did you ask your therapist about the obligation you feel to exhaustingly covering all the topics that we bring forward? About the responsibility that you feel to.
No, interesting though. So that thought in my mind like kind of came up because of a discussion that we had about it, I think. But then when we had a chat about that, I've had more time to ruminate on it, I think. And I'm glad that you talked me off the ledge a little bit because I think it was a little bit of imposter syndrome sneaking in for me, like wanting to take too much control over the podcast and the information that's in it and downgrading the value that you and I have just in that conversation and promoting conversation in general. So I'm glad we had that conversation. And as I say, you kind of talked me down off the ledge a little bit. And I've thought about it a lot this week, and that we do have a lot of value in terms of leading the discussion to promote further discussion with maintaining the values that we have, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Guys, if you want to know about any of the stuff that we're siloing in on in our particular interests, then research it. And then after you've done that, call up your bestie and say, hey, what do you think about
Talk
this?
about it.
Talk about it.
Lastly, kind of on this topic, the things that I had on here was just trying to suggest some ways to incorporate these sort of musical things into your life, or even like I said, even that idea of just trying to be in the moment. One thing is sort of understanding maybe music as a tool and how a well-structured playlist can help you in a moment of need. So if you're someone like me that suffers with anxiety, like now since doing this, I'm like, okay, I'm going to put some effort into creating a playlist specifically to target that moment. If I'm feeling super anxious, what's something that's going to bring down my heart rate and lower my blood pressure and calm me? Or at the same time, before this podcast, when I was feeling a little bit more slow, needed a bit of an energy boost, like have something to go to for that. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great plan of attack.
I think we're going to try and make a couple playlists too related, like include some of the songs that we talked about and try and separate things into kind of these different like emotional categories. If you want to check those out, we'll link them in the show notes. Let us know what we listen to, which would be fun. It would have been obviously ideal to play little clips from the songs and make this like a little bit of a different experience, but we cannot afford the copyrights. I looked it up. It's like a minimum of $100,000. So it's like, yeah, that's not.
And, knowing us, one of our 22 listeners would rat us out for sure. We should also make a collaborative playlist so our listeners can songs relating to a theme to
That'd be cool.
maybe like a general mental health.
Yeah, well, I think even the ones that we create, we can make them open to the public. So people can just add songs. Don't mind.
One thing that's for sure, though, I'm convinced of this, is that musical tastes will vary yet have the same effect. So I guess we kind of touched on this. Like
Mm-hmm.
my hump brain, I like to listen to calm music to keep me level, and you need a bit of a pick me up. So you're listening to some heavy things. Our day one listener, my day one bestie, Corey, actually reached out and he was like, dude, congratulations on hitting that 365-pound PR. What music were you listening to?
No way.
And I said, yeah. I said, honestly, probably something super soft like Hosier. And then he sent me a bunch of like heavy metal songs that he listens to when he works out. And he was like, give this a go next time. So I haven't made it back yet, but I'm going to give it a go. We'll see. I told you I played that round at Cedar Hill the other day,
Mm-hmm.
a nice little 9 on December 5th or something like that. I had the course to myself, had the hearing aids in, put Spotify on. And honestly, this was the first round of golf I've ever played while only listening to music the whole time. And as I was like hitting my tee shot, I felt like something was off, and I was reflecting on it and I was like, oh, I can't think about my swing thoughts when the music are on.
Yeah.
But then my opinion changed. I'm like, oh, that's actually a positive thing. So as soon as I realized that all I focus on was the music and not my swing, I accepted that and then just started swinging, and it was great.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah. But at the beginning, it felt like I was distracted.
Yeah, yeah. That's how I've always found, well, because I started golfing before music on the golf course was a thing, but I'm still very much in the mind of feels like a distraction for me.
Yeah. So I had Charlotte Day Wilson on, super nice, relaxing,
Yeah,
melodic. It was good.
nice.
Yeah. Try totally instrumental next time. Hermanos Gutierrez, Guitar Brothers. That could be good.
Yeah. That reminds me, I saw this funny video. Have you come across Ernie Els yet in your like golf journey? Do you know who Ernie
Yeah.
Els is? The Big Easy, they call him. So there's this funny video where it was like some commentator, I don't remember who it was talking about Ernie's tempo. He's like famous for like this nice tempo on his golf swing.
Ernie
Yeah,
Els.
and so it was like Ernie Els, Ernie Els.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
maybe you can just have that repeating in your mind the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. No, ever since our first episode and ever since finishing Putting Out of Your Mind, now I only visualize the ball flight I see in my mind, and that's it. That's all. And it's working.
totally, dude. Visualizing the ball flight is key.
When I first started out, I was only thinking about things like, okay, left knee down and in,
Mm-hmm.
and like, oh, like every backswing was different because, yeah.
Yeah.
But now when you get it out of your mind, it's pretty consistent.
Yeah, that's what I think, like on the range, if you're working on stuff, it's like okay to have those things in your mind and you're maybe doing a specific drill to try and work on it. Yeah, once you're out there on the course, it's totally different.
Yeah. Next up for me is I got to work on shot shaping.
Yeah. That can be tough. Definitely takes time. Yeah. Um, should we get into our weekly affirmations?
Yeah. That was short and sweet, but it's got one central value-driven theme. Listen to music to control your mental health.
Yeah, think about it. Think about it as a tool to help you. I mean, I was literally researching it and it like almost didn't click in for me that I could use it to help. So
Yeah.
it's so commonplace in our lives. I think we probably forget how much it can help.
Big time. Like music makes us happy, but not thinking about let's use music to make me happy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, weekly affirmations. I wrote mine down.
Nice.
I'll start us off with the moment of gratitude for this week. So I finally got out, met up with some friends I haven't seen in a while. We went out for dinner. This new restaurant opened up in the Esquimalt, the Sax Point Public House. As we know from the last episode, not drinking alcohol. So I'm grateful for the fact that every new bar and restaurant's got a great selection of non-alcoholic beers. The Guinness Zeros, I'm obsessed with. They're so good. So freaking good.
They're so good.
Especially when you pour it in, it's indistinguishable from the real thing, especially with a little bit of this.
The thing for me that's the struggle is that like, with my gluten intolerance, like I probably really shouldn't be drinking beer anyway. So that's why I got stuck. Yeah, I got stuck in a moment a few weeks ago where like I really didn't want to drink, but I was out at a brewery because it was a brewery that didn't have like soda tap. And so I got kind of stuck. And then I ended up just having a gluten-free beer because I was like, okay, I got to choose one of these vices and chose to have the booze.
There you go.
That's cool. So that was your moment of awe was Guinness? Zero alcohol Guinness.
No, well, it should have been. Did I do it in the wrong order? That was something that I was grateful for. From
Okay. I think you said moment of awe.
grateful for the fact that all of these bars and restaurants have
Yeah, yeah.
amazing non-alcohol options. And this is a pretty limited one. I was stoked to see Guinness, but there are some places that have like craft lineup of just non-alcs.
Hmm.
There's these Sparkies from Japan that just appeared in Victoria on these different restaurant lists. I haven't had a wine that I love yet, a non-alc wine that I love yet. I think the best in the market right now is Oddbird
Yeah.
from Sweet, of all places.
Cool. Yeah, I had that discussion with my dad the other week because he hasn't been drinking either. And he tried a non-alc wine, and he asked me before like what I thought, and I kind of said, well, like the key kind of issue with wine is that alcohol makes up so many components of a wine beyond just alcohol. Like it helps with the body and the structure of the wine. So any ones that I've sort of tried have just been very lacking. Like it just doesn't feel balanced at all. So it's just off. And I even find that with like the non-alc beers sometimes too. It's just that the balance isn't right. So yeah, he gave one a try and was like, yeah, you were right. I shouldn't try it. So let's tell him to look out for
Now,
that one.
some of the sparkling reds can hold up to food because then it's almost like more of a beverage too than,
Yeah.
I don't know, wine.
Yeah. So yeah, grateful for me, I wrote down, my therapist, been going to therapy. It has made like such a huge impact on my life. It's kind of cool. I go once a month right now, and driving out there to go gives me these opportunities to kind of like check in and be like, oh, okay, how did I feel a month ago, the last time I was here? But when I was driving out this last time, I thought about how I felt before the first time I went and realized what an incredible leap I have made in terms of feeling so much better and being in such a headspace. I actually got like quite emotional about it. Told my therapist, like you should be super proud of what you've done for me. Like I didn't realize what a like dark, heavy place I was in until kind of getting out of it and feeling a little more like myself consistently over the last little while. So yeah, big, grateful for therapy. So I would honestly suggest literally everyone out there. I mean, even if you think you don't need therapy, or you're not struggling with anything, you'd be surprised. It's quite different to what I think people think it is, and it can provide you with some like really good insight and tools to deal with your life. So yeah.
Dude, I could not agree more. And I feel like so many people out there are in the same situation where they're like, I don't have any unmanageable symptoms right now. Or even worse, it's like, why should I go to therapy? I haven't experienced any trauma, thinking of the big things, but you probably have, or at the very least, being able to talk through what's on your mind with a professional. So much clarity and freedom come from that. If only it was more accessible in this province and less expensive.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you can, get out there and do it. Shameless plug for Cognito Health in BC, our buddy's company, online mental health care. It's a monthly subscription. They'll even send you drugs if you need them.
Yeah, very cool. At one point when I was like kind of deep in it, I filled out their little like questionnaire and was going to head down that route, but then was referred to someone in town and decided to go that route instead, which is really working for me. But yeah, at the very least, like if you are thinking about maybe wanting to do it, start there. Go have a look at Cognito, fill in their questionnaire. That's going to provide you with some insight, and yeah, see it works for you.
Here's another thing that I thought about recently is maybe not everyone has this friend in their life, or maybe it's their partner and they feel like they always want to come to them to help them troubleshoot. And as much as that's great and a good thing, sometimes you could be like overloading that person, or maybe they're not the best authority on the matter for this. And me, when I've been looking to get advice from someone, I've also felt like I'm always coming to this person with my problems. It doesn't feel very mutual, or maybe there's even a subject matter that like I'm not super comfortable bringing up with this person. So let's pay a stranger, and not just a stranger, but an educated, trained stranger to help you work through things. And yeah, it's chill, helpful, really great.
I think we've all been there, whether you were the person listening or talking in that situation. So yeah, it can be super helpful to like not overload or bog down that person in your life that you care
Yeah.
about that's probably going through their own stuff, right? Like it's something we should all be
Yeah.
aware of.
I read a study recently that said that venting actually just perpetuates those negative emotions. So
Yeah, I think it can. There's a balancing act there for sure.
yeah, like talking about inner voice controlling your mood, music controlling your inner voice, controlling your mood. If I'm venting to you, even because I want to get it off my chest, I want to feel better, I still have to spend 30 minutes ruminating over shitty stuff instead of reframing, putting on some positive tunes or thinking about something completely different.
Yeah.
And feeling better.
And as you're saying, right, if you're going to sit and complain for 30 minutes every day about the same thing to one person, eventually at some point, that person that you're laying that onto is going to be like, okay, I'm taking this all on for you. And they don't have the tools. So that's why you should go see a therapist. There we go. We brought it all full circle. Okay, now it's moment of awe. What was your moment of awe for this week?
Yeah. So, a show that I really love on Netflix is called Chef's Table. I've watched like every episode. It's beautiful. And it really makes me emotional watching the show because it's typically people that have come from nothing and made something. And it's these remarkable success stories, especially because I love food. To see them do it in a restaurant scene, my heart sings. There's one episode, the restaurant in Mexico City is called Masala y Maiz. And it's a guy who is from like Africa and India, meets a Mexican woman. They fall in love. They open a restaurant. So obviously it's a hybrid Indian, African, Mexican cuisine in Mexico City. But more so than that, where the awe really comes in is them talking about how their restaurant is like a voice for change. They're really about positive action and speaking up for voices of marginalized communities. And they tell this amazing story where there's some corruption in Mexico City and they're given like 12 hours notice to close their restaurant right when they're in a tumultuous time where they're trying to become profitable and get the restaurant afloat. And the community rallies around them. And instead of paying basically this bribe, they stand on their morals and start selling donuts of the revolution to basically survive and fund themselves through this corruption that they're experiencing with the local government. And ends up being a huge success story. And the icing on the cake is I was able to make a reservation there for Layla's birthday when I'm in Mexico City in January. So just the whole thing all together is going to be, the climax will be when I eat there in a month. But that's my moment about.
Very cool. I can't watch cooking shows because it makes me too hungry.
Yeah.
Okay, my moment of awe for this week was, I don't know if I've mentioned on the pod before, but I've been like trying to level up some skills on things. One of those being photography and videography. I bought like a fancy camera and got a couple lenses and stuff, and I've just been trying to teach myself how to shoot better and then like edit content a little bit better with help from people on YouTube and ChatGPT, which has actually been really cool. But just yesterday, actually, I realized that some of the like birds in our yard that I've been like feeding for a few months now have started to get more used to like me being around so I could get a little bit closer. And I managed to be in this moment trying to get photos of these little chickadees, and they're so tiny and they like flip around all the time. They're like never still. And so like playing around with settings, trying to learn how to use my camera. And eventually by the end of like just standing out there and working on it, eventually kind of got the settings right and was able to snap some crazy cool photos of these little birds. Which was really neat. Like the one, you could zoom in on it and I could see that there was a little speck of dust on the bird's eyeball. Like that's how crazy close and sharp it was. So that was for sure my like moment of awe, not for just that like moment of with the birds or whatever, but kind of being a almost 40-year-old adult and like really trying to teach myself a new skill was pretty cool.
Dude, learning is so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
New skills are great. That. And it's really honestly scary to hear you say almost 40 because I know what that means about me. And
I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration to say almost 40, but I'm closer.
You're halfway there.
Yeah, but
Sorry.
You're half a decade behind me, so you still got a ton of time.
I think it shows too.
Yeah, I think I'm doing pretty good. I'm gonna take it.
You're doing
got a young face.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter what age it is. You're on the pursuit of self-improvement. You're leveling up body and mind. So
totally
heading in the right direction.
Next up, this is one of the things we talked about changing for this week. Last week, we obviously like picked a positive song that made us feel good leading up to this episode. knowing what you have planned for next week, I wanted to choose something that we can put into practice this next week, something to take care of your body, something I've been thinking of doing for a while. I've mentioned I've had some health blocks towards like really doing anything too physical, but with my improvement on the health side and mental side of things, I'm going to start incorporating some yoga into my routine this week. It's nice and like obviously low impact. I don't think my heart rate will skyrocket too high. And if I feel like something's too extreme, I can just kind of back down and take a bit of a break. So I feel safe approaching things that way. So that's my like take care of my body thing for the week is I'm going to try and do some yoga.
Amazing. That's awesome. Yoga is so good. The reason why I think yoga is so good is mainly for mobility, flexibility.
Yeah, dude.
That's the physical benefits. Obviously, there's a lot of benefits with mindfulness and meditation around yoga. So my topic next week is going to be around physical health. It's going to be basically showing what I do to stay physically healthy and the reasons why I do that. So I'll reference the sources and support it with some facts. And so very much related to that, something I'm going to be my physical health that I've always wanted to do and I've never done before is get a blood test. I'm really curious about where my vitamins are at. I'm particularly curious about testosterone. I'm only 31 years old. It should be good, but you see a decline after 30. You see a decline sometimes after 25. There's other things that negatively affect testosterone, like daily cannabis use. Alcohol use affects it too in a negative way. Luckily, I don't do that anymore. But yeah, and if my numbers aren't good, I'm really curious about testosterone replacement therapy. Yeah, I'm already pretty jacked, but why not get bigger?
Yeah, it's interesting. That's one of the things that came up with some of my blood work this year, but it was related to basically had like shockingly low levels of vitamin D, which I think is pretty common in Canada. I think even I've heard from a lot of people that even our scale of what's normal is lower than other parts of the world. So even if you are within a normal range, that's still considered low. So that, and then some low B12 has been linked to lower testosterone as well. I've been working on those things. I want like crazy high doses of vitamin D, but I think it's been helping.
Did you get testosterone numbers on that blood test?
I did, which was like, it was on the lower side, but I'm approaching resolving that naturally without doing any sort of injections or anything.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sweet. That's awesome. Yeah. So if there's anything I can do to superficially give myself some low numbers, just pre-testing so I can get some drugs, let me know.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry. That's cool.
That young man who murdered the healthcare CEO the other day, another very polarizing topic. I got to be honest, it's really, 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 really scary to see people celebrating that murder. Like as much as I honestly feel like I'm a hippie leftist radical,
Yeah.
I don't want to see people just getting murdered in the streets.
Interesting. I'm all for it. Take them out, man.
Eat the rich? Okay.
Yeah, dude. Eat the rich. That guy led to not only probably the death of, I think saying just thousands, maybe even be like while being one step removed and be able to feel he's cleaned his hands of it. Not only to the financial burden that he placed on a lot of people in their biggest time of need. Like think about, so one of the things that people will spend $1,000 a month on extended health, on health insurance in the States. So take $1,000 of your salary every month, and then you get cancer, and then they say, no, sorry, man, we can't cover that. In your most vulnerable time, when you rely on them to take care of you, they deny you. That to me is the most heinous thing you could possibly do. So while I agree that it feels a bit icky to be celebrating it, and I wouldn't say I'm celebrating it, I'm not out there like posting support for this guy that murdered that CEO. I get it. I really get it.
Getting it?
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Was this CEO an evil person? You could argue if he deserved it for sure, but to support it seems to me is like opening this slippery slope floodgate of people that do bad things that you don't agree with. Murder is a viable answer. And I'm surprised that I'm saying this, but I do mean it because I would love to see a revolution. maybe is this how it starts?
Honestly, man,
We'll go both ways, man. I don't want the other side to start picking on us and our people.
true. But one of the really interesting things that I like keep hearing about is you think about the Renaissance era, right? And the massive income gap or like wealth gap between people in that time. You think about the palaces and then the extreme poor. Statistically speaking, the gap now is bigger than it was then. We just can't see it.
Dude, I don't doubt that at all. I see a scary, obviously, this might not be true, but there's a stat circling that a peasant in medieval times only worked 120
That's real.
days out of the year.
That's real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Considerably less than I work, that's for sure. Okay, maybe not me. Considerably less than what the average person works.
Yeah, dude, totally. That's what there used to be like way more public holidays that where people didn't work for different celebrations for different things. But yeah, I believe that 5-day work week I think was ushered in by good old Mr. Ford. If I
Well, I think he ushered in maybe 6 and then unions
unions brought
clawed.
it back to 5. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually a funny related to that. I brought up my frustration with the Canada Post strike because I ordered something that will be beneficial to my health once it arrives, but I can't get it because it's stuck with Canada Post right now. But then also expressed my support for the Canada Post Union and their workers striking right now, and laughed about it with my therapist because she was talking about this superposition thing where it's two opposing things can be true at the same time. So we had a good laugh about like how I can be frustrated but also supportive.
That's a good point.
So maybe that's what we can think about this, CEO, healthcare CEO thing is both things can be true. We can feel icky about the fact that he was murdered, but we can also feel we get it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I will adopt opinion now. Yes.
That's great.
So, okay, last week my goal was to ruminate less, get out of my mind, particularly in regard to the podcast and people's feedback and the social media angle of it. And I definitely did a good job of that. You made the suggestion, or you said that ruminating is because the brain wants to be busy. So give it something else to work on. So I tried to do that the best I could. When it was most successful was honestly last night. We were just sitting watching some telly. I had just made a clip from the podcast for social media and my brain was spiraling on it. I was like, I checked back. I was like, it's only 17 views, just thinking about dumb stuff. I was like, okay, I got to stop thinking about the podcast. I posted my clip. Let's get it out of my mind. And was really struggling with it. But then Layla and I started building this Lego set that we've had for a couple of weeks and we haven't started yet. And that was amazing. For the 2 hours that I spent building Lego, I did not think about a single thing other than the instructions in front of me and these cool little tiny plants, the botany collection of Lego that I was building.
Dude, we have one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody gave Sarah one, I think for like just when she had her surgery, and we thought maybe that would be something she'd be able to do, but there was no way. But yeah, that's one of those talking about like being in the moment, right? Being in the present and not worrying about stuff. Yeah, cool.
Yes, exactly. So my goal for you.
Yeah, my goal was to work on my time management, which I was also super successful with. I had a busy week last week, a bunch of appointments and meetings and things, just a bunch of stuff that I had to do. And so what I decided to do was basically take my calendar in my phone and I just created a different calendar and just called it time management. And I just block out times to do things and try and just plan out my days a little bit more. And even sometimes if you don't necessarily stick to exactly what your schedule is, just having that thing blocked out and then you can move it around and keep track of what's going on. I definitely found once I started implementing that, it made a big difference. It ties into what my goal for this next week is going to be, but I want to spend less time on my phone, less time on social media. I have the settings on my phone where I give myself 1 hour on social media apps and then it blocks me, but I just keep hitting the allow me 15 more minutes button to get by it. And I'm not going to do that this week. I'm going to stick to it and not get sucked in. So yeah. What's your goal for this next week?
I love that for you. It's great that iOS has made it so easy to track that stuff. And they've not only made it easy to track it, but they've identified its problems and they've provided us with some solutions like that locking. I don't want to talk about my screen time. It is horrifying, horrific.
I know, dude, it's so bad.
And TikTok is at the top. So that'll be my goal further down the road. I'm not ready to give that up just My goal for next week ties into my topic for next week. It also ties into one thing I'm going to do for my health next week. And so in addition to the information gleaned from a blood test, I just want to do an analyzation of supplements in general and expand upon my supplement routine, basically. So currently I'm just doing a multi. I'm doing my 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body weight, and I'm taking creatine, greatest supplement ever. One of the most heavily researched supplement overall. Not only is it for physical health, muscles, but the studies with how it improves cognition is really exciting. So do a deep dive at supplements, give myself an optimized little list, go out and buy some more vitamins, start taking them.
Nice. You should consider, a couple of weeks ago, I started ashwagandha.
Yeah.
It's been one of the things I've talked about before is I suffer with a lot of physical symptoms of anxiety, and those are, along with some of the other stretching and strengthening routines that I put in place. I started them about basically around the same time, but those symptoms are essentially gone. I find myself managing my stress and my anxiety so much better now that I've started taking it. I know another friend of mine takes it to help with sleep, which you said you have trouble with. So you should consider it. You can get a big, massive thing at Costco for pretty cheap.
Yeah, I will consider that. I think about my sleep so much. The problem is I know that there's so much I've got to do to get to a place of healthy sleep. And the biggest hurdle to that is reducing, or honestly not reducing, but cutting out my cannabis consumption till I can get the sleep under control, and then maybe reintroducing it if I need to. But we're a little ways away from that, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, you nailed it. We had a lighter topic this week, but still focusing on mental health and how to regulate it. And I love that I learned a bunch of things. Thanks for bringing that topic.
Totally. Next week, I'm excited to learn about my body with Anthony and see what you do for your physical routine right now. It'll be cool. And then I think I'm going to go a little bit heavy again with my next one. I want to dive into a controversial topic, but one that I've suffered with for the last year. Is I want to talk about my
long COVID. Yeah. Okay. This will be a really good one because I'm a COVID denier, a reluctant COVID acceptor.
Yeah, dude. We all wish it wasn't real, of course.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get into that before then getting into some light things again.
Yeah. Well, if they're already manipulating the weather to sway election results, I mean, COVID was an inside job.
Oh, dude, we should do an episode on chemtrails.
We should do an episode on conspiracy theories and let's rate them on a sum scale about how likely we think they are to exist.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So I'm not a regular listener of the Joe Rogan Experience, but some of the clips I see reposted, little nuggets of crazy, like I find them really kind of interesting to think about.
That would be actually interesting from a mental health perspective. To understand, why they exist, why they perpetuate, what they could potentially mean for your mental health if you prescribe to them. I wonder if there's any information out there on that. That could be cool.
Dude, yeah, because some conspiracy theories are kind of true. Well, a conspiracy theory is questioning the norm, and I think we all need to be questioning the norm, especially with what's been happening lately. Like, there's never been more proof that we're living in a simulation than this crazy shit that's been going on.
Totally. Yeah, honestly, I think the key thing in it is the ability to differentiate between reliable information and unreliable information.
And also what theories are helpful and which are harmful.
Yeah. And how you can be manipulated through some of them. Yeah.
Flat Earth, pretty neutral. Not a whole lot of negative implications with that one.
But the most funny. Dude, for whatever reason, my TikTok algorithm gets me on the flat earther stuff, and I get so sucked in. It's so funny.
I love watching the professional athletes double down. And you're like, well, since you are known for your brightness. Also like, hey, out of all the opinions available online, who should I go to for medical advice? Probably a talk show host turned stand-up comedian turned wrestling announcer.
Totally.
It's almost like listening to anything that we have to say.
Almost. Shut up and dribble.
Yeah. Never better.
Never better.
All right, buddy. Great chat. Yeah. Talk soon.
Okay. Bye.